People are capable of amazing things. A lot of people, I think, underestimate how much of a role luck can play in life, and I certainly think I've had plenty of luck.
Alex Vynokur, who has $28 billion in funds under management.
I'm a big believer in leading by example. We can actually make a real difference for hundreds of thousands of people, because that trust that people place in you has to be earned every single day. I love learning. As long as you learn, you live.
Hi, I'm Elina Reddy, and welcome to Foreign Influence.
Thought about it. It doesn't.
We're good. Drama, controversy.
So she was the driver for.
Getting back because he was a good guy. Because he's gonna love to design all that thing.
People who trusted me with sharing their stories. Hi, I'm Elina Reddy, and welcome to Foreign Influence. How many millionaires do you know who have become wealthy by investing in savings accounts? Someone who would probably agree with that is our guest today, Alex Vynokur, who has $28 billion in funds under management. I'm so excited about our interview today.
I'm also very excited. It's great to be with you.
For me, it's extra special because both you and I have so much in common. We came to Australia at the same time in our lives when we were teenagers and in the early 90s.
Yes, it was an interesting time, wasn't it?
I am very impressed with what you have achieved, especially coming from post-Soviet Ukraine with, like, we all came with $0 in our pockets with one suitcase.
Yes.
And now you are running a $28 billion company. Do you actually wake up every morning and believe that you've achieved that?
I don't really think about it that way. I think we're all lucky that we ended up in Australia. I think Australia is an amazing place, which has really become home to so many of us from the ex-Soviet Union and from other countries. It really is a country of opportunity.
Let's go all the way back, and let's go back to Soviet Ukraine. What do you remember about growing up there in your early childhood memories?
My upbringing was a very warm upbringing. I grew up in a town called Shargorod. It used to be a Jewish shtetl, basically. I was surrounded by family, surrounded by love. It was a difficult time, obviously. It was a difficult life in Soviet Union for so many people. But my childhood memories were very positive. I had very close family. We spent a lot of time with each other. I've got a younger brother. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents on my father's side. On my mother's side, both of her parents died before I was born. But I spent a lot of time with my grandparents and just had a happy childhood.
What were your interests? Or what were you told that your interests were?
Yes, that's right, more like it. Chess and piano, I mean, they're almost compulsory, I guess, for Soviet kids, but not for everyone. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed playing chess. Piano, again, I was encouraged by my parents.
To love it.
Yes, I enjoyed spending time with my friends. My parents made me study, and I was a reasonably good student. I think the reality, of course, as I was getting older, we had a big thing called Chernobyl. I remember we left Ukraine for several months. We actually went to Uzbekistan. In my family, there was quite a lot of understanding of the communist regime and the drawbacks of the communist regime. So I remember when I was growing up, I was hearing a lot about how, like, this was not allowed and this was not allowed and this was not allowed. I grew up also just with a real proximity to all the memories post-war. My grandfather, whom I mentioned before that I was very close to, he sadly passed away recently. He lost both of his parents when he was 11, like in 1941, and he ended up being taken care of by the Soviet army. And when the war finished in 1945, he was 15 and completely on his own. And he used to tell me the story that that was probably the most difficult time actually. It wasn't the war itself, which was hard for him because he was young and he wasn't like fighting on the front lines, but he was like, washing people's dishes and, cleaning their boots and whatever. But at least he was taken care of by the army. But when he was 15, he was completely on his own. That's when everybody went back to their families and he had nobody to go back to.
Hearing his stories must have really somehow shaped you up the way that you are today.
Yeah,
must
for
have
sure.
had a big
for sure.
impact.
He had an incredible ability to connect with people. He had a very positive outlook on life, even though he went through so much adversity. Nothing was a problem for him, basically. A problem was there to be solved. Like a problem was not there as a barrier. So his mental state was incredibly inspiring and very positive. He had quite an entrepreneurial base, essentially, in him. And it was quite frustrating, of course, like for somebody who was living in Soviet Union to have this...
so many restrictions.
Yes, had so many restrictions, right? So he wasn't able to really do everything that he wanted to do, but despite that, he did quite a lot.
So let's talk about your teenage years and the time that was coming very close to you departing Ukraine.
My father's an engineer, my mother's a teacher.
Very educated family.
Yeah. Education in our family has always been very important.
Why did your parents decide to leave? It's a very big decision to pack your life up and go somewhere.
Big decision, Elina. I must say, I appreciate their decision more and more the older I get. When I was a teenager, I didn't really understand the sacrifice that is involved, packing everything you have, basically, and really moving to the other side of the world, to a country where people speak completely different language, a different culture, different everything. So at the time, I think I was quite naive. I thought that it's like a journey.
1994, you arrive in Australia, you are 16 years old. What were your first impressions?
I just couldn't believe, for example, when I walked into the supermarket for the first time, I could not believe like everything that's there. I've just never seen anything like it. The first few months were really tough. When we got to Australia, I was sent to this special school called the Intensive English Centre. It was a bit of a rough kind of institution. People from everywhere, from Asia, from Africa, from former Soviet Union. It was a bit of an interesting place. But I met some of my best friends. I remember seeing Bondi Beach for the first time and was really blown away. Living in Sydney, moving to Sydney, that was just a dream.
Exotic.
Yeah, it was exotic.
Alex, how would you describe yourself as a person in 5 words?
Curious, determined, kind, I'd like to think. Maybe that's 3.
I think you qualify for kind, definitely. So just take yourself back to that moment. 16-year-old young man in the new country, everything is really, really new, very different, and you get to experience, to feel that pace of life.
Yes.
And the possible opportunities. Did you have that really strong desire to really achieve things in life?
I definitely felt a real energy in Australia. I didn't really have a tangible plan. A lot of children that I met in my year at school were planning their lives. Somebody was planning to go to university, someone was planning to study something else, somebody was planning to travel. It was really my first experience of being surrounded by people, being in the system where people were making plans for their lives. I thought, like, if I don't do well at school, I'm probably going to be like stacking shelves at Coles for the rest of my life. I didn't have anybody to talk to who could explain to me that there is so much more.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure, like for a 16-year-old.
Yeah. Look, I was probably putting a bit of pressure on myself. I certainly didn't feel any pressure directly from any of my family or whatever, but I just knew that I really need to nail it.
And you did.
Well, look, I mean, they had very low standards, so the fact that I got into university was probably a reflection of the fact that they had very low standards at the time.
I doubt it.
I studied a combined degree in commerce and law at University of New South Wales.
So you graduate, and what do you do after your graduation?
University itself was amazing. So first of all, I met my wife at university. Which was,
Oh, how lovely.
Yes, that was very nice. Her name is Jana. She's from Ukraine as well. And we met at law school. She was also studying law. It was probably the best thing that my law degree is good for, basically. I haven't really made it as a lawyer.
Yeah.
After graduating from university, I got a job at a law firm, like a big American sort of international law firm. And I worked in their office in Sydney, and I had an opportunity to go to Singapore and spent a bit of time there. But I figured out very quickly that I'm probably not going to make it as a lawyer, and some of the colleagues that I was working with, they thought that I'm too opinionated to be a lawyer, basically.
Okay.
Like a really good lawyer is somebody who can really take instructions from clients, and they can implement those instructions really well and really effectively. I had too many of my own opinions, basically, to just being told what to do and then just do it. And I worked actually in a law firm whilst I was studying as well. So a few years into my...
Yeah, like internship.
Yeah, that's right. I was doing, I think it was called paralegal. And I thought, yeah, look, if there's an opportunity to try something else in business or in finance, I really should.
So you leave the law firm?
Yes, so I left the law firm. I was very lucky because whilst I was at that law firm, I was working with a client who I got to know pretty well. He was a high-profile business person. Yeah, we got on with him really well. And yeah, he ended up offering me a job into the world of investments and into the world of finance, and really, really enjoyed it. I was working extremely hard. Again, I was an immigrant. I was hungry to learn. I really wanted to learn. A lot of people, I think, underestimate how much of a role luck can play in life. And I certainly think I've had plenty of luck. We're lucky that we ended up in Australia. I was lucky, obviously, to have gotten into university, and fortunate to be working at the firm that I did and meeting these people. It was amazing, like how many things have fallen into place.
Yes, luck, I agree, but also the grit that you had, the dedication, your motivation, and your desire to work extremely hard.
Joining that particular individual in his business was really transformational for my professional life, because I have started learning a lot about business and essentially learning from the best.
Alex, tell me about your company, Betashares.
Betashares is a company I started just over 12 years ago. The mission of Betashares is to help Australians financially progress. We do that by allowing Australian investors to invest their money, whether it's superannuation money or money outside of their superannuation, in a range of investment products which are cost efficient, they're transparent, and they're accessible. So our job is to democratize access to wealth creation for all Australians. The company has been around, as I mentioned, just for over 12 years ago. We are managing just over $28 billion in assets on behalf of almost 1 million Australians.
$28 billion. That is incredible.
Yes, it really is.
You must be so proud.
I am incredibly proud. I'm incredibly proud, and of course it's very humbling as well, because of course it's a big number. What's really incredible about that is that there is a story behind every investor, right? For somebody, it's their savings for their retirement. For somebody, it could be money that they're investing maybe for their children's education. For somebody, it could be funds that they're investing because they want to save up for a deposit for a house. So for me, what's really important is not just the number, which of course in itself is incredible, but what's really important is the fact that people trust us. They trust me and my business with their savings, with their capital. And that, of course, comes with a lot of responsibility. For me, it's really important to make sure that, yes, of course, we are proud of what we have achieved, but at the same time, it's absolutely critical never to take that trust for granted, because that trust that people place in you has to be earned every single day. Also, what really excites me about the business that we're in is that we are democratizing access to wealth creation for ordinary people. But yes, we have some of the largest Australian superannuation funds and insurance companies invest with us, but we also have regular Australians, people who are often investing for the first time, or people with a lot of experience, but just normal, ordinary people who are investing. Again, I'm just thinking about my upbringing. I remember growing up, always thinking that investing is really for rich people. But in Australia, we have an incredible system of superannuation. By law, like 10.5% of everybody's salary has to go into a superannuation fund. So whether we know it or not, we're actually all investors in Australia, all Australians who work. Our job is to make sure that people have opportunities to be smart with their money. I love the fact that today, with availability of technology, availability of information, we can actually make a real difference for hundreds of thousands of people. That's really something that I'm super proud of.
Alex, Betashares in Melbourne, how many offices do you have? Obviously Melbourne office.
Yes, head office is in Sydney. We have over 30 people in Melbourne at the moment, and we have offices in Brisbane, Perth and New Zealand.
Wow, that's incredible. All in 12 years you have created.
Yes.
How many people do you have worldwide?
So altogether we have 135 people in the business. So still quite lean, which is nice. I still know everybody's name, which is excellent, and thankfully they still know mine.
Well, it's kind of a plus if they do.
Exactly.
Look at this beautiful space here.
Yes, yes, it is convenient, and Melbourne's an amazing city as well. So always enjoy visiting our office in Melbourne.
Alex, how important is innovation in your company, Betashares?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. Innovation is critical to what we do. I'm a big believer in the fact that in order for a business to be successful long term, innovation really needs to be at the core of what you do, because the world is changing all the time. Investor preferences and investor sentiment changes all the time, and it's really important for a business to stay close to the customer and to be able to innovate for the customer.
What do you think the strengths in your character that have really been beneficial for you in your career?
Perseverance, for sure. Determination, curiosity, but also trusting people around me, basically. This business would not have been what it is without the people that are making it happen every day. It's amazing to be surrounded by amazing people.
Over a year ago, we have all received absolutely devastating news about the war in Ukraine.
I remember when I heard the news, I was on the phone with my uncle who lives in Ukraine, talking to him and just asking if he's okay. And of course then was glued to the television and Twitter for days. It was just really, really hard and really devastating. And I had memories of hearing my grandparents talk about the war, basically. And I remember my grandfather, like when he was on his own, having lost his parents, he was taken care of, as I was mentioning, by the Soviet army. And they had everybody there. They had Russians and Ukrainians and Armenians and Georgians. Everybody was fighting the enemy, which was Nazi Germany. This whole idea of Russia starting to kill people in Ukraine, I just couldn't believe it, basically. Could not believe it. Frankly, to this day, I'm still finding it just almost impossible to come to terms with. The first few days, I was really paralyzed, shocked, and like so many of us, was very angry. But eventually, I just kind of started thinking about people that are suffering there, and I thought about what can I do? There's no use being angry, because being angry, it's like it doesn't really help anybody. It doesn't make a difference. And that's when I started thinking about, together with Jana, with my wife, started talking about, okay, well, what can we do? Like, is there anything tangible that can be done? And I started speaking. I've got a lot of friends as well who are still there. The first thing that I heard about, immediately, was ambulances. Everybody was desperate for ambulances. Like a normal country, of course, you have enough ambulances to take care of population as and when required. But all of a sudden, you have thousands of people that are wounded, and there's just not enough ambulances to take them. So that was the first thing. We purchased the initial few ambulances in Germany, basically, and loaded them up on a truck and got them to Poland, and then through Poland ended up in Ukraine. And I was like, wow, we actually did it. It's amazing. And
It is amazing.
Yeah,
it is absolutely amazing.
Started doing more and more and more. I was having a conversation with a very good friend of mine, close friend of mine, who said to me, "Oh, I'll give you some money, you can maybe buy some more." I said to him, "Look, I don't feel comfortable, like I don't really want to take people's money into my bank account." The idea at the time was, hang on, maybe we should set up like a charity, set up a vehicle where people can actually donate, and it will be a properly organized charity, registered, audited, and transparent. That was the moment I thought.
And it's also empowering people that they can try to help as well.
For sure, for sure.
So that was helpless.
Yeah, that was the idea behind United Ukraine Appeal. There's a lot of great things that we've been able to do in that 12-month period, which of course on the one hand is very satisfying, but of course, you know, you're never happy about that because, you know, the whole situation is just so unfair and so terrible that it's very hard to feel happy. I'm a big believer in leading by example. There's one thing to tell your family, to tell your friends, to tell your kids, to tell your colleagues, do the right thing. Here I've met countless doctors and journalists and people who work in philanthropy, just regular people who have put up their hand and offered to help. It's given me a really fresh perspective on life, just seeing so much kindness against this background like of evil, which is in itself very disheartening.
You create kindness around you.
Well, look, I try to, but you don't have expectations. Some people help financially. Some people have an amazing idea. A person we were talking about earlier, Marina, I mean, she, you know, got in touch and she had this amazing project that she was very passionate about to evacuate blind children. They couldn't get looked after in Ukraine. They needed specialist help and they couldn't get that specialist help. And as soon as I heard from Marina about that need, I was like, we have to figure out a way to do it. She was incredibly enterprising in helping make this happen, and I had to quickly scramble basically to make things happen, but we did, and we got these children out of harm's way. There were over a dozen basically children, and these children were devastated. I mean, they were blind, they were afraid, like with sirens going off.
Where did you evacuate them to?
They ended up in Germany eventually.
What a happy life you have given so many people.
Look, again, I
and
can't
here you
really
are
take the
sitting
credit.
here so modest.
Yeah,
this
look,
is incredible.
It is incredible. It is incredible. I mean, the one thing that definitely I have no doubt about is that people are capable of amazing things. And putting in effort, not giving up and not taking no for an answer is really critical. My thinking with Ukraine and the work that we do, it really has two dimensions. On the one hand, I have one eye on the atrocity and the suffering today, and we're doing a lot to continue helping people every day. Constructed bomb shelters, we're delivering over 1,000 meals every single day to people who are displaced, to people who don't have the money, to people who don't have access to, you know, sort of to food. We have provided medical equipment and continuing to deliver medical equipment and ambulances, and we had to deal with energy crisis that was last winter when a lot of energy infrastructure was destroyed. But at the same time, I have one eye on the future. I think about what can we do today to help rebuild Ukraine? And what can we do to make sure that the population in the future is actually going to be able to be resilient to rebuild the country. So, for example, we have just recently launched the first, to my knowledge, the first dedicated mental health helpline in Ukraine. And that helpline is now staffed with over 50 trained psychologists in Ukraine who are working in this.
This is unbelievable.
In this thing.
Just
and
amazing.
It is amazing. And if Ukraine is going to have a chance to rebuild itself, which I very much believe will be the case, people will need to be strong, people will need to be resilient, and people will need to have support.
Job is very stressful, I would imagine, so much responsibility. How do you relax?
It's actually not too stressful. I do relax by spending time with my family and friends, and I read quite a lot about wine. Vynokur means winemaker, basically, so I haven't lived up to my name just yet. I'm a wine enthusiast. I've got a real interest, curiosity about all things related to wine, so I think I read every book that was probably written about wine.
you like research, you like to be very well prepared for your next endeavor.
Yes,
Yeah.
clearly, that's right. Yes, I love learning. That's one of the things that, as long as you learn, you live basically. So learning is really, really important.
Thank you so much for your time. You're a very busy person with your business and your charity and your family. Thank you so much for taking out the time to talk to us.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.